Hey guys, what is going on? So today I wanted to talk about the start of my cut, which I started yesterday, as well as my progress over the past couple months as I've been working with my coach, Bald Omni Man, who I've worked with in the past. But I'm getting started again and trying to get consistent with my training as I have spent the last year and a half not really committed to the gym and not very consistent. So this is me trying to right that ship and go back to the gain train and hit some new PRs and everything like that. So for context, in terms of where I'm at, obviously, like I said, I had spent probably the year and a half or so leading up to working with Paris, just really inconsistent in the gym. And so a lot of the numbers that I'm going to present to you and the progress that I've made and everything like that, you have to keep that in mind. I'm kind of regaining lost ground in a lot of areas. Now, that's not to say that I've made no progress over the past, year and a half. I've definitely increased the size of my arms, did a lot of isolations and improved those. And I think that's going to really help me in terms of building strength and size down the line. But it's been a very focused effort in terms of just general bro exercises as opposed to a holistic training program. So that is what I'm currently doing, is doing everything, doing legs, doing arms, doing back, doing all this stuff that I was doing before, plus things that I neglected. So I'll go over the numbers, go over my progress, and hopefully I will be able to make more updates so I can kind of track where I, have been and where I continue to go, and talk about, new PRs that I hit, new body weight goals, everything like that. So day one was yesterday. My scale has not worked. I just needed some new batteries and I'd been lazy. So I hadn't been weighing myself over the past couple weeks, but I am pretty convinced that I was actually losing weight prior to this cut, because I just gotten started in a new gym and I was just taking a lot more steps throughout the day, and I wasn't like really focused on bulking over the past couple weeks. But I peaked out at about 250. So that is kind of like, I guess, the start point of my cut, but at the same time, that's not where I started. So I weighed myself at my girlfriend's house and her scale read 248. And then I weighed myself this morning and I was 243. So I don't know. I'm going to go off my own scale. And I do think I have lost, a few pounds over the past couple weeks just by not intentionally bulking and, getting those additional steps and everything like that. But somewhere in the 245-ish range, I guess you could say, is my starting weight for the cut, which historically speaking, that's pretty light for me, especially at the end of a bulk. I think that's due to, one, I didn't bulk as aggressively as I have in the past. And then two, I'm still regaining some of that lost muscle that I had over the past year and a half. Mainly in the lower body, I really didn't train legs at all up until pretty recently. And that's going to be the first number that I talk about here. So when I started working with Paris, we got serious about training legs. And obviously there's, leg extensions and stuff like that I can talk about. But the main kind of thing that I use to track my progress in terms of leg size is probably just going to be the hack squat, because I think that's probably the best leg builder that I've experienced in the past. And when I started doing the hack squat working with Paris, I started with 185. Now, could I have done a little bit more? I think I totally could have, but I don't know how high that ceiling went. And I started with 185. Now, I just did a leg session today, this is day 2 of this cut, and I did 295 for my top set. So somewhere around 110 pounds of improvement in terms of working weight. Now, was my true max 185 in terms of, the maximum amount of weight that I could have done at that time? Probably could have done more, like I said, but lots of progress to be regained when it comes to leg size. Now, in terms of hack squats and what I've done on other machines, I try not to compare like hack squats that I've done years ago on different machines, because the weight difference is just could be dramatic. So I'm not really going to look at that, but I do think I was probably somewhere around this range, probably a little stronger because my legs were bigger, but I think we are regaining and getting close to where I've been in the past. So I think that's something I will achieve this year, and then we will get to new heights, and I'll have the biggest and strongest legs that I've ever had by the end of the year. But again, we are cutting right now, so obviously that's something that may have to get postponed a little bit while I shed some of this fat. So Leg strength definitely on the way up, and that is something I foresee continuing for a long time as I continue to regain that quad size and strength and everything like that. So that's the leg thing. Now, in terms of RDLs, my RDLs are not close to where they've been. I'm doing Smith RDLs today. My top set was with 335, and that was pretty hard. And I've done sets with RDLs. Now, this is free weight RDLs, so generally I'm better at free weights than I am with Smith machine, but I was doing RDLs with, over 400 pounds, I think. I think probably 405, 415 was probably where I peaked out, but still, that's definitely some ground to make up. And I think I'm just going to blow past that in time, but it's going to take some time to build back up to that. But RDL's not really in the same ballpark, I would say, currently, which means I have a lot of extra room for growth in the posterior chain, which is really exciting. Back work, I know my pull-ups are not where they used to be at all, not even close. That being said, we haven't been doing like weighted pull-ups or anything like that, and that's something that I historically have not been very good at. So we're just using a variety of different machines and methods to grow the back. I'm doing like behind the neck lat pull downs. I'm doing like machine rows and a lot of stuff like that. And I would say my back has been probably the number one thing that has improved over these first couple months with Paris. That's been the biggest visual change. And that's kind of his specialty. He's really known for, his back and his back training and everything like that. So we do a lot of back work. That's one of the main reasons that I like working with Paris, is that back is something that I've historically struggled with. Now, in terms of legs, it's more about just being consistent with legs, but I have really good leg genetics, so it's not something that I struggle to grow, whereas back, I need help with back, and Paris is probably one of the best people to help me with that, so made a lot of progress there. And last time I worked with Paris a couple years ago, same thing. Best back progress I'd ever had, so that's definitely been a huge area of improvement. But it's not like I really had any crazy back numbers to begin with, even when I was at my strongest. So, we're just kind of probably getting close to building new tissue in there at this point. And I think by the end of this year, I'll definitely be reaching new heights with that. Now, in terms of pressing, this is probably the thing that I'm the most known for. A lot of my PR lifts that you may have seen of mine, or if you've followed me at all, you know that I've definitely hit some more impressive numbers in the past than what I'm hitting now. But I completely stopped pressing for that year and a half. Even when I was training some tricep and some chest, I wasn't pressing at all. So now that we're doing a lot of different pressing, I'm gaining some of that strength back. Now, the lift that I would say is the most representative of what I've been doing would be the seated Smith OHP, because that has been something that I've been able to consistently do. I did have a pec injury that's still not fully there, so we've kind of been sprinkling in some pec stuff here and there, but I have to be really careful with that. So the shoulder pressing is kind of, the top tier, most important pressing thing that we're doing now. And then jam presses is another one. And so starting with the overhead press, so the seated overhead press. And when I talk about these numbers with the Smith machine, and whenever I mention these numbers, I just assume the bar weight is 45, even though I know it's not. Now, I'm typically somebody who's better at free weight, so I don't really think that that's a big deal to count it that way. But just in terms of simplicity, that's the way that my coach likes to track it. When I refer to a number, that's just like, hey, 225 is, 245s on each side. Doesn't matter if the Smith machine is XYZ brand. Doesn't matter if it's 25 pounds or 35 or 15 or whatever. So if I say 225, that just means 245s on each side, right? So what I started with was I was working with, I believe 165, either 155 or 165 for my working weights. Yesterday, which was my most recent overhead press session, and this is seated Smith machine, I did 210 for my top set. And so this is not, if we're comparing this to standing overhead press, this is not at the peak that I've been at. But I historically have not been good at Smith pressing, nor have I been good at seated pressing. So this may be like pretty close to all-time highs. Plus, the level of progress that I've been seeing in this lift has been very rapid. So even if I'm not at all-time high pressing strength with the shoulders right now, I think we're nearing that, at least for this specific exercise. Now, in terms of the last time I did standing overhead press, that was a few months ago. I did 225 Probably could have done 235. For reference, my all-time max is 275. So if we can assume I've probably made maybe 20 or so pounds of progress at least, I would hope, maybe in that area. Obviously, I haven't been doing that lift. That would put me at around 255. So again, knocking on the door in terms of shoulder strength, but not where I've been in the past. And obviously the goal is to surpass that. So shoulder strength is coming back. And I think the reason that that lift has been going so well is because I have done a lot of tricep work. So for me, an overhead press has historically been, oh, I have really strong shoulders and I have okay triceps. Well, now my triceps are much bigger and stronger than they've been in the past. And then my shoulders don't have to do as much work. So I think the runway for me to get back up to my previous best is not as hard because I have much stronger triceps and I can lock out more weight. And I think that should be apparent as I continue to progress in that. Triceps have been the one thing that I have not, or I guess biceps to some extent, but primarily triceps, I have not stopped training at any point throughout this process. So even that year and a half where I was kind of taking time off with a lot of stuff, I was still training my triceps here and there. So I don't think there's any atrophy. I think my triceps are the biggest they've ever been. And in terms of strength, depending on the exercise maybe, and kind of going into that with JM press, I'm pretty sure I am at 200 pounds for reps with the JM press. Again, this is a Smith machine, which is also progressing very fast. So I don't know if that's at all-time high levels, but again, I think my triceps are a lot bigger than they've ever been. So that number should progress pretty dramatically, I would say, into new heights. And then once we're looking at all-time high tricep strength across the board, bring my shoulders back to where they've been, then we can start, bringing the chest up. Obviously, that's been something that's been injured. And then all that can come together to have, obviously, a very good situation when it comes to pressing again. So really good progress across the board. It's been a very good experience. Now in terms of my cut, like I said, the weight that I had been fluctuating around was 250-ish, and then it's probably closer to like 245 right now. The goal is probably to lose another 20 pounds from here, and I want to do that. I have a couple trips coming up in May, so I want to be not necessarily like shredded going into those trips, but I would like to be lean. Then I'm going to go on my trips. One of them is New York, so obviously I have to enjoy the New York food, and that is what I will do. And then I have another trip as well. I'll come back from that trip. Probably will cut a little bit more, and then, sometime maybe in July, start the bulk again and repeat the process. And I should be starting my bulk from the leanest level that I've been for like 4 years at that point. So that should be a very long runway into new gains. And then I think by the end of 2025, I'm going to be pushing some really good numbers. So that's where I've been at in terms of, gains with Paris. That's where I'm at in terms of my cut. And again, I hope to give a lot more updates in the coming weeks and months as I get more consistent. So anyway, that's all I got to say about that. I'll keep you updated, and I'll talk to you soon.